I keep repeating myself, but I feel like with every single day I progress in this Small Love squat program, I am instantly humbled. Every single session is intense, if not more intense than the prior workout session. And I've talked about this before, but each consecutive training session of my leg days increases in its, strength demand. The first day starts off with 4 sets of 9, which is very high rep, but low in its sets, right? So overall, it compensates for its large demand of volume. Now, this weight I did last time was 100 kilos, and I surprised myself not necessarily surprised, I kind of expected that I would have gone through this workout pretty unfazed, right? But reality told another story, and I struggled pretty hard on my last few sets, right? I was under the impression that I was able to hit like 10 reps fairly easily on 100 kilos. But at that time, I think the fatigue and the mental toll that it takes on your body is very demanding for these as the sets progress, right? Now, I came into this session knowing that I had a 5 kilo increase, 100 to 105. Now, I've said this a couple of times, but I was under the impression that a 5 to 10 kilo difference hardly feels like a true difference, mainly because of its such a small percentage increase in comparison to the total whole weight. It's if you're comparing 100 to 105, you're only increasing it by 5%, right? And yet the mental capacity that you, develop in that sense is that there's such a disparity in the reality of that small weight change versus how much of it affects your mind. And I guess this just comes down to the adaptability of how your brain accustoms yourself to that 100 kilo weight, right? So in this session, surprisingly, the 105 actually felt all right. It felt a lot lighter than usual, almost as if it felt lighter than the 100 kilos from 2 days ago, right? And I guess I could give credit to the fact that I kind of changed the position I placed it on my back, right? So I kind of narrowed my my hand positions a bit, and also I placed it on my back a bit better, like a bit higher, just so that it's balanced on my traps more. Now, surprisingly, this actually felt very light, and the ironic thing is, although it felt light, when I transitioned to the 150 kilo hold, it felt excessively heavy, or felt much more heavy in comparison to the other training session. And I didn't have the confidence to walk it out front and walk it back because I was under the impression that I would probably drop the weight, right? But yeah, so when I looked at the rep scheme, 5 sets of 7 at 105 kilos, I felt a bit uncertain. I know that in my warm-up, I did 110 kilo for a pause single. This went down and up very smooth. It felt very light, and I could almost physically feel the progression in the squats, right? But when I had that 105 on my back, although it felt light, I've said this again, but the difference in having the weight on your back versus actually descending down into the eccentric of the squat is two different experiences. And I've still not accustomed myself to that, the speed at which I go down on my squat, right? Specifically with the when I'm going for high reps, and I'm not as concerned on the bracing, right? And also, I guess whenever I go down a tiny bit, I can almost instantly feel the pressure on my lower back. no matter how much I arch, no matter how much I hinge at my hips, there's like that discomfort I instantly feel, and I can almost recognize every single time I go down into the squat. And this only occurs for weights heavier than 50 kilos, right? But despite that, yeah, I started off my first set, and although it felt fairly heavy, I managed to struggle through 7 reps, and yeah, I finished off the set, right? But that's when I kind of, although I've said this before, that the first set, once you've accomplished that, you feel a lot more accustomed to the weight, and you gain a lot of confidence to finish off the rest of the sets. In this case, I almost felt a bit helpless. Like, as soon as I finished the first set, the next thing in my mind was, like, the only thing in my mind was, can I finish the last 4 sets? Do I need to increase the amount of rest? Am I able to really do all these sets? And I started getting a bit worried, but after resting about like 7 minutes to 8 minutes per set, I did manage to get over all my sets, right? Another concern I wanted to bring up was I have a tendency to lean a lot on my right whenever I go back up from the squat, especially my hip. My hip starts to tweak and leverage itself closer to my right side. And it's most likely the fact that my right leg is stronger, right? It's the dominant side. And I guess as I go into the higher rep ranges, I fatigue myself, and thus I must compensate that fatigue by trying to rely on my my most confident side, the side that's able to take the most of the beating. And I've been trying to like consciously not lean my hip to one side, because there's a lot of problems with that. There's a lot of muscle imbalances that it can lead to, and like that's the last thing you want to have, especially when you're doing the squat, because muscle imbalances lead to the potential of injuries and also unwarranted muscle size differences that you don't necessarily want, right? And due to that strength disparity, if you're relying purely on your right side as fatigue hits in, well, there's going to be such a large discrepancy in strength between your right and your left leg that just in general, your posture, just like your daily bodily functions, is going to hinder itself. There's going to be a few kinks and flaws that will eventually build up over time. So that's another concern I wanted to raise, and I'm hoping to work on that later on. Another thing I wanted to bring up was that from this 10 kilo increase from last week, hitting 105 kilos for a rep or for a set of 7, when I put it into my 1 rep max calculator, it actually brings my 1 rep max to 126 kilos, right? Now, for this smaller program, I actually put my PR as my 1 rep max as 125 kilos, right? That's actually I've never tried higher than 120, but I've hit 120 for a double, right? So I was under the impression that I was able to do 125 kilos. But I guess it kind of leads on to the conflict between volume and how that translates to strength, right? So I was wondering, even if I may be able to hit 100 kilos for like 12 reps, right? How much of that volume, or I guess your ability or your body's ability to handle high reps, right? How much of that can translate to your body's ability to exert as much force as possible in one single rep? How strong, or what's the capacity for your body to be able to hit a very high 1 rep max, right? And I was under the impression that by nature, my body's not adapt to endurance, right? And this endurance is kind of translating closer to high reps on squats, right? And yet, I'm able to hit all these high reps, and surprisingly, I feel like these high reps, I'm a bit concerned about whether I'm able to transition all of this intensity into a very high 1 rep max, right? Now, I haven't hit 100, haven't touched 120 kilos in a while. And the main reason is because I'm just a bit worried about dropping the weight. And since it's at home, the safety pins here are a bit not unreliable, but they're just smaller in size, right? So I'm basically just using my how fast and how the 110 kilo singles feel as a reference to how I would feel if I were to do 120 kilo squat, right? And with this session, I found that the 110 kilos it felt good, right? So it felt like the best out of all my sessions so far. So I do feel like overall, I am somewhat feeling that progression. So yeah, aside from that, I'll finish off here and I'll see you guys later.